What's up, guys? Welcome back to the JP and Trav show on the JP and Trav YouTube channel, and also live from Travis's X account and his Instagram. As always, it's your host with the most, JP. To my right, I have my esteemed co-host, brother, and friend, Travis J. Davison. Travis, how you doing, brother?
Man, I'm good. I just got a new microphone, so hopefully everybody can hear me loud and clear across all platforms that we're streaming. So I'm good. It's crazy though, because radio, we did a shortened schedule today and off by 2, so I wasn't on this week, and then last week, New Year's Eve, I wasn't on at all either. It's the longest I've gone without doing radio. It's I don't know, it feels kind of weird. I feel like I'm just gonna have to sit in my room and talk for 3 hours just to try and get all my my word count out for the week. So, but no, everything's good. Holidays were good. Glad to see you guys on, and Chad, thanks for making it, man. Appreciate you. How you been?
Good. Yeah, thanks for letting me hop on. I'm excited. Good day to be on, I guess, with all the movement right now with Oklahoma in the portal. But excited to be here.
Yeah, it should be a fun one. Yes, we understand that Texas is playing right now. Let's hope that Michigan beats the brakes off of them, just so it can calm them down a little bit, because they've been a little bit chatty as normal on social media. And I'd like to tell them, hey man, like, you lost to a Michigan team without their head coach that we beat. So even though I know bowl games are meaningless, but whatever. Yeah, what do you guys got planned for New Year's Eve? What are the plans? How's the families doing? What's going on? I think you may be muted, Trav.
Oh wow! See, new mic. I'm telling you. Let's see. It says I'm not mute.
You're good now. Oh well, now it just went back.
Well,
now you're. That's weird.
Let's see. Does it?
There you go.
I'm on. Okay, cool. We'll see. New technology, right? So, no, having a couple friends over. I'm making some handmade pasta, and then no machines, just a little rolling pin, flour, and egg, and then I'll be doing some homemade tomato sauce as well, because I'm going on carnivore again starting tomorrow. So it's got to be pasta. So having them over and just keeping it really low key. And continuing to work on wedding stuff. So, we've got Jamie's doing a good job on that. Thank you. We got save the dates ordered today. The website's done, all kinds of stuff like that. So just cranking that out. So no, other than that, I'll be watching some football. Made a short trip to Kansas today to make the football just a bit more interesting for this evening. And so should be a good time. How about you, Chad?
Watching the games, really. We don't really have many plans in terms of T's. For those that know, my wife Tierney, who's usually on these things with me, due in March, so it's not like she's as mobile as ever, and I'm still on the back end of recovering from a surgery. So going to be just watching really the playoff game probably.
What about you, JP?
Yeah, after this, my alma mater is playing. The Pacers are playing right now. My alma mater is playing after them. They're playing a fellow conference team in a little, neutral site game on the NBA floor. So I'm going to support them after I get off of here, taking the wife and the daughter, and then we'll come back and try to ring in the new year the right way. So. There you go. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to a great 2026. But speaking of, let's go ahead and add Josh Mahler in here. Josh, how you doing, buddy?
Good. How are you guys?
Yeah, we blessed.
Great.
We doing good.
Great, great. Yeah, we just we're saying what we were doing for New Year's Eve, so perfect timing. Josh, go ahead and tell us what you've got planned for New Year's Eve tonight.
Watching a hockey game, and then going out to a hockey game, I should say, supporting the local team, and then heading over probably over to just watch a little bit of I guess they're a cover band over, kind of close out the year into the new year. But yeah, I'm sure it'll be a good time spent with family.
Yeah, it's good, man.
Good.
Well, Trav, we had originally, and we still will. We're gonna get to kind of like, hey, what's everybody's big wish, for the Sooners of 2026? And I think we can reminisce a little bit on 2025 too and what it brought very quickly. But I think we'd be remiss if we don't hit this kind of right off the bat. The Sooners have had a litany of players jump in the portal today. Some that were expected, maybe a few that I don't know if shocked is the right word, but maybe a little bit unexpected. And so let's go ahead and I'm gonna show a screen here, and we'll pull this up, and we can I'll talk about it. And Travis, what are your thoughts on who's kind of gone on the portal today? As we can see here, we've got Michael Hawkins, KJ Daniels, Josiah Martin, Luke Buklenko, Logan Howland, Gentry Williams, Malik Hawkins, and Devon Jordan. That's all today. Obviously, Kobe McKenzie and Javante Barnes as well have hit the portal. So what are your thoughts, man?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the official announcements will come Friday when the portal opens. That'll kind of give us a clean list of everybody. But I think with Mike Hawkins, I think you can draw the line directly to the return of John Mateer, or the likely return of John Mateer. You really can't ask Hawkins to do much more, right? I mean, sit again for another year. Be told he's got the opportunity to compete again. Malik didn't really, see the field a ton as a corner. Obviously, Cortland Guillory, the freshman, popped, and then Devon Jordan, obviously, who will be entering the portal as well, provided good depth. Jacoby Johnson, when Gentry was healthy, Eli, you had a lot of corners, but that's what's interesting to me is I think our corner depth is rough right now, to say the least, I guess, because I said it last year in the portal season. It's really hard to find a backup corner in the portal, just like it's hard to find offensive line depth or quarterback depth for that matter. The problem is if you are good enough to be QB2 at Oklahoma and be one snap away from starting in the SEC, you're probably good enough to be a starter at 100 other places. So you run into these issues where kids want to get on the field, they want to show tape, they want to play football. So it's you're going to have a tough time finding somebody to be QB2. But then also when it comes to corners, you remember last year, I think they didn't go into the portal because they were so high on what they had in Cortland Guillory, but also they swung and missed a couple times because how are you going to justify, and even going into this portal season, how are you going to justify, you've got a Eli Bowen who was a freshman All-American. Now you've got Cortland Guillory who's coming off a freshman All-American year. Those are your bona fide CB1, CB2 guys. You've got Jacoby Johnson, you've got Newcomb, you've got dudes, but where's your depth going to be, and how hard is it going to be? You've just got Derek Johnson, the only signee in 2020, the 2026 class that you have coming in at corner. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. You really need to stay healthy there, and you'd like to go out and find some bodies and say, hey, look, we rotate heavily. Maybe you can play a little bit of cheetah in coverage situations. Maybe you can do this, that, and the other. But, initially, I think this was always going to happen coming off a 10-win season, right? Because not a lot of people are looking to take, especially with the defense, not a lot of people are looking to take a lot of guys off of 6-17, right? They're not going, hey, saw you guys lose to Navy in the bowl game. Really impressed me. Can you want to come over here? I've got a big bag with your name on it. It's a little different whenever you're among the top units in the entire country and playing, in the playoff. Those calls come a little bit more frequently, and your agent is also sitting there saying, hey, I can get you more. let's just hop in the portal, man. I can get you more. So I think that's why you're seeing, a lot of the defensive depth get out there. Guys like Devon Jordan could probably start a lot of places, So I don't blame him, but this is why you brought in Jim Nagy. It's time to go to work.
Yep.
Chad, what are your thoughts?
Oh yeah, no, I mean I agree 100%. I'm always of the mindset that some of these moves are being made with an understanding of what they're going to eventually lead to, or what the player leaving may have. Although like a Gentry Williams, for example, extremely talented, one of my favorite players. I mean, legit a second day, top 3 round talent at corner, maybe even a first dayer. But for what I hate it for him, but he's got the glass shoulder issue that he's dealt with. It's been hard to get production from him, and eventually you're starting to see some of these moves be a look. We would love to have you here as a talent, just for pure talent, but we can't have you taking up spots or positions of need later on. So I understand it with those kind of players. One that surprised me a lot was the Devon Jordan one. I didn't see him entering simply because I thought, like Travis said, they rotate so much at that position that even though you're not starting, you might end up getting the starter snaps. Like you might actually end up more than the guy that was out there first, depending on how you're playing. And BV has always said that he's going to go with the strong hand or the hot hand whenever, especially defensively. And maybe this is something that he's in negotiation tactic. And, you never know in this day and era. But that was really the one that surprised me the most. Maybe after that would be like a Logan Howland getting in, because I thought he would have some potential to get snaps next year, especially with Foje being sort of between that guard and tackle position, depending on how he wanted to shape his body over the offseason. And again, it's hard because you don't know what's going to be out there. I have the mindset, and I'm not going to act like it was my idea. Nick Saban said it, and I have a rule that if someone, arguably the greatest ever, has an opinion on something that's a heuristic for me, I'll just use it. You want to use the portal to supplement, not really to build. You built the recruiting through talent acquisition in high school and all that. And then, when you need a piece, you can build that through the portal. And it's funny because before all this started, and I'll wrap up after this last point, I was on the deal like, look, we need a tight end. And if you're talking wish list, I mean, last year I wanted Tanner Koziel. That would have worked out well. But, it would have been nice to get a great tight end in the portal. But for me, it would have gone to when Howland entered, and now you're looking at the corner position. It's one of those where tight end still for me is the biggest issue, but I'm wanting to get now you're starting to look at where can you supplement with corner, where can you go with offensive line, and some of that might be just making sure they have enough to keep Foje and Fasusi and EPL and all them and that kind of core still at Oakland, and Mikula here as well. So that's kind of where I'm at on the whole thing right now.
Yeah, well, and I think you guys pretty much stole a lot of the talking points, but yeah, I think Devon Jordan was definitely a big one for me, where I was a little shocked, but it was one of the few names that I was waiting, thinking like, if that one ends up entering in, it's going to suck, because you saw what he was able to do throughout the season, where I felt like teams kind of saw him out there and tried to burn him, and he learned from mistakes and grew a lot throughout the season, I felt like. And so that was one of them. There's a few others that I'm hoping they get their stuff put together to make sure that their names don't get put into that group of players leaving. But currently, like you said, Travis, it's not really official until the second. So maybe we have a little bit of a David Stone type of hope, with some guys like that coming back. I think Malik Hawkins, I mean, I understand, but the whole Michael and Malik Hawkins going together, that was I guess that whole thing was kind of a shock to me. But it does suck to see, again, another DB. I feel like just the DB room as a whole, that was the one going into this season that I was concerned about, that more for the depth, not really that I thought that we didn't have the talent there up front, but I wasn't sure about the depth because of Gentry and his injury problems. And we still didn't really know what the verdict would be on Cortland Guillory. We expected him to be good, but we didn't really know at the beginning of the season. And so that was definitely there. So I think for me, looking at it, like Travis said, I think building that DB room, I'm also really concerned, not concerned. That's probably the wrong verbiage to use there, but I'm questioning what that linebacker room will look like going into next season, because if Kip Lewis does decide to leave, then we're left pretty empty there. If Owen Heineke can't come back, then we've got another one gone there. Pretty hopeful on Kip Lewis, but I'm trying to keep my hopes low. Hopefully he does end up deciding to come back. Yeah, I think that's the big one for me. I know Chad threw out tight end, but I'm not as concerned with tight end because I know what we've got coming in. I know what some of the targets are that they're looking at. I anticipate them to going after that tight end and getting a solid guy. But I also kind of feel like Oklahoma did pretty well without a tight end this year. And so I feel like they can probably build upon it without that tight end as well. So although the tight end would be a great piece to add in and utilize it properly, but
yeah, I want to touch on something Chad said because it's a point that I'm consistently making. I feel these last 3 weeks, Chad, you touched on what Nick Saban said about you supplement with the portal, you don't build through the portal, right? Well, that's where I look at where the 2025 offense was and the 2025 defense was. 25 defense was elite. It was a top 5 unit in the country. And out of 22 players on the 2 deep, 2 of them were 2025 transfers, Kendall Daniels and Marvin Jones Jr. On the offense, 10 were 2025 transfers. And you've got that on the offensive line, which obviously we all know takes continuity to gel. You've got it at the quarterback position. You obviously spent big money on a running back. So you had, and then when you look at, transfers in the wide receiver core, I put out the stat on Twitter that it was like, I think high school signees in the year 2025 that signed with Oklahoma out of high school had like 7 total catches. And like, that's insane. Like, that's got to change. Like, I just think it's so funny that you can be sitting there in the Switzer Center going, how should we build this roster? Oh, we have one absolutely elite side of the ball that has 95% high school signees. And then the other side of the ball that stinks and it seems to lack cohesion and seems to be disjointed. It's tough getting them all on the same page. We built that mainly through the transfer portal. So I wonder what we should do next. So I get you're not going to be able to keep all these guys. Robert touched on it earlier as it's not necessarily about these kids getting to the NFL. It's NIL. They need to go and get paid now because Robert brought up that only, 2% of people make it's a lower percentage of that make the NFL out of college. Go get paid now. Like before, the options were, I got to show tape to get to the NFL, or I will make a total of $0 playing football in my entire life. Now you can go to another school that might say, hey, we've got this much budgeted for a starting corner. Here's 150 grand. Here's 200 grand. You have to do that. So, there's a few people that obviously can afford to stick around, make good money as a backup, and then pop and wait your turn. But I don't blame any of these kids that aren't seeing the field here. Go get your money. Like very few people have gotten paid very good money in college football, and you're the first era to do it. And who knows where it's going, but go get your money. And as far as tight end goes, we had an all SEC tight end this year. The problem is he was a liability in blocking. And I think a lot of the reason that we struggled in the run game as much as we did is we didn't have that 6'5", 6'6", 260, 270-pound tight end that, could get out in space and score a touchdown up a seam or get open in an end zone. But mainly he needed to get out there and punish people at the second level. We did not have that this year. You tried to kind of move Caden Helms from being the jumbo wide receiver out of Nebraska into being that kind of inline blocker. Will Huggins was never going to be that. Carson Kent did his best on it. Jaron Kanik, through all the effort, was just never going to be an elite blocker at that size. So I think that's what you look for in the portal when it comes to tight end. Bring me some 6'5", 6'6", 260-pound dudes that are going to go put linebackers on their back.
Muted, JP.
Rookie move. Chad, let me ask you a question, man. I've seen some do we have an issue? I know you don't, but I don't understand why people have an issue with Gentry going in the portal, or why I've seen people that have an issue with Gentry going in the portal. Like I put a tweet out, man, like Gentry's always been OU all the way down. Like I hope that he can go somewhere and have success and that he can be healthy. And people are like, well, if he's in the portal, he's clearly not OU all the way down. I was like, why does that have to mean that? Because you gave somebody, like you gave a team 4 years of your life and you couldn't stay healthy. Like the reality is, and Trav, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but to me, the reality is like, hey, you have Cortland Giller and Eli Bowen. You're probably not going to be like getting the majority of the snaps potentially moving forward. So
Yeah.
like, or if you are, it's going to be in the backup role. And if you want to get to the league, you probably need to go somewhere that you're going to be the guy. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I still think Gentry's gonna find a home. Gentry's a very good corner. He's got great measurables, great athleticism. It's just come down to his health. He just needs to go somewhere, and I'm sure he'll get an incentive-laden deal that says, "Hey, if you can stay healthy for this many games, well, this will be how it's reflected." But also, like, yeah, Gentry, I think, came home from the hospital in OU gear. He's OU through and through. He stuck it out through injury after injury, surgery after surgery to try and get on the field as much as he could. That's I mean, obviously everybody knows I have personal bias, but I mean, Gentry's going to land on his feet, but he did what he had to do. I mean, I've used this analogy before, and I think your Chad, I think your boys, the Cranes, used it as well. When it came to the car wreck analogy, it's like every time Gentry puts on an OU uniform or is in the treatment room or anything like that, like it's going to be in his head that's his injuries. They're always going to be in his head. And it's the analogy goes, anytime you've been in a bad car wreck, if you drive by that spot again, you're going to think about it. Whether you like it or not, you're going to think about how that happened. And is what it is. Gentry is going to find a home. He's still a really good corner. I still think that's a guy that's going to hear his name called in the draft, and he's said all the right things, done all the right things. Was never a distraction. Was always great with the media. Was just everything you wanted out of a Oklahoma kid. But I know I was told by a head coach. So a lot of you guys know with team sports, we do a lot with like the NFL Combine and Shrine Game and all that. And was talking to a college coach a year ago or before the season, and he said, if Gentry gets injured again, we're going to get him in the portal. Like this was late July, August, something like that. And I was like, oh my, like, and then, so that's been in my head the whole time. Like other coaches don't look at Gentry as like, damaged goods. They're like, nah, if he gets injured again, maybe OU won't pay him as much as maybe they have to pay some other corners, and we're going to go get him. So, anyways, wish him nothing but the best. And like I said, he'll land on his feet.
I feel like Kobe McKenzie is another guy that's kind of similar to that too, where he's sooner through and through. And I feel like he did it the right way. You put in your work, you put in your time, and you eventually do have to think about where's my stock and where am I going to go. And so I don't have anything wrong with guys doing it that way. I think when you see guys transfer around to 5 different schools, at Casey Thompson, where how many schools did he go through, and I think that's where it becomes kind of like, oh man, like what's wrong with the transfer portal? But no, yeah, Kobe McKenzie, and I don't know, maybe you guys have some thought on this too. It's something that I was just thinking of last night, was like, if Kip were to declare and Heineke can't come back, is there a scenario where Oklahoma keeps Kobe McKenzie?
I mean, I think that it's obviously. I think that you're going to have to try. It also depends on who gets in the portal, I guess, and who you think you can actually have a shot at getting.
Yeah, true.
I mean, y'all know as well as I do. Kobe to me was what made him so valuable. Wasn't his athleticism; it was his brain. I mean, it's pretty clear when you talk to him, you hear him do interviews. I mean, he was the neural network of that defense in a lot of ways, with alignment adjustments. You saw it at games when if you were there live. I mean, he really was the guy that kind of got everyone set. And for me, I think there was just an Owen Heineke stuff I hope we can get to too. I mean, it's ridiculous that the NCAA is just. I always say every large company Travis, when team sports one day is at Fortune 500, you are required to have a CEO of common sense. Okay, we're going to say, you're going to take an option to him, and he's going to say, why are we not just letting this guy play? Let's build some goodwill here. Everyone hates us. No one likes us. Why are we just continually doing more things that are killing us? But the Kobe McKenzie thing for me is I would like to have him back, especially if we don't get much out of the portal, and they can come to some agreement that makes sense. But that's just my opinion on it. But
Yeah.
There are a lot of tight ends. There are a lot of tight ends in the portal. A couple that Oklahoma is already in on. I wouldn't be shocked if they already have an agreement in place for one or two of them. But the problem with that is we just talked about the value of continuity on this defense, right?
Mm-hmm.
We want linebackers in year one to have to learn Brent Venables and call Brent Venables defense with the schedule that goes to a 9-game schedule. Keep in mind, this is our schedule. The start of the year, UTEP, which is not good, but not the worst of the bad teams. And then you go to Michigan, and then you play a New Mexico team that just had their first 10-win season since, Jesus rolled out of the tomb. Like, you've got Georgia, you go at Georgia then, and then you've got Texas. So it's like there's not going to be a lot of time for a new linebacker core to learn how to call this defense. Like, that's scary. So you need to get those guys in. You got obviously the three that in my mind, are mattering the most in this talk. And you can make arguments obviously up and down the roster, but Isaiah Satania, Kip Lewis, and a decision on Owen Heineke. Those three things I think matter more than anything else this Oklahoma offseason.
No doubt.
What if Mateer got in?
Got in the portal?
Yeah, would that be number one?
At this point, I'm not considering that an option.
Yeah.
But if Mateer got in, that would be very.
That would be a shock. That would mean that there's something going on that's like, oh crap, we should probably look into what's going on back here. Like, why would he get in the portal of all things? But I don't blame him for using the weak draft class this year to get into the NFL. But there's obviously room to improve, right? So I don't know.
Let me ask y'all,
betting on yourself.
T and I were talking about this Monday. I'm interested in y'all's opinion on this thought. Sorry to interrupt you, Josh, but I want to hear your thought on this. I am of the opinion that, obviously, if you can be the number one overall pick, you're crazy not to be, right? I'm not saying that. But if you're a guy that's like a 3 through a 6 or, in that area, I want to be drafted later. I would rather be the Mahomes going to Kansas City at like 14, 15 than Baker going number one overall to the Browns.
Yeah.
So the weaker draft class helps him maybe in the short term in terms of getting drafted higher, but does it really help him if his goal is to become a better quarterback in the long term? Does he get Aaron Rodgers it and be behind Brett Favre for a few years, but instead of having to do your first day out there, you're the starter and the guy. I don't know. I kind of would, especially we all agree, John needs to make improvements in myriad ways, starting with his footwork and whatnot. But is that a crazy thought or no?
No. Obviously you want to go to the best situation possible, but that first round money is, it's just, there's nothing like it, right? And you get contractual advantages. The thing is, if you're a third round pick, you're going to sign, a 5.5 over 4 deal. John Mateer right now is on like a 3.1 over 2 deal.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you go in the third or fourth round, if you're John Mateer, you're making more money, in college, or at least relatively similar money in college, and you can raise that up to where that first contract is so much better. Obviously, everybody makes money on the second contract. That's what you really want to make it to that second one. But much like Gilbert Arenas, when he got to get to his contract much earlier than a lot of the first round picks, and he used to let everybody hear about it. Second, third, like you're on a 4-year contract, not a 5-year contract. So you can get to that second year much more quickly. And keep in mind, this is a kid out of Washington State that wasn't making any money really in the first place. All of a sudden now you're making big money and you're kind of the guy on campus. Like, do you really want to risk? Yeah, it's a weak draft class, but I don't see him going in the top 2 rounds. No. Like I see him as a third or fourth, maybe even a fifth rounder. I could see him going a little after where Dylan Gabriel went.
Yeah.
So, Yeah, I mean, I guess you can go and take that chance and go get that time. But then, it's not like basketball. You can't just go back to college all of a sudden. So
True.
that if I'm him, I'm coming back another year. I want another year to improve on some stuff. I think late in the year he even talked about how he wanted to climb the pocket more. He wanted to, keep his feet, squared up a little bit more, keep his shoulders square, fix his throwing angle a little bit, fix his arm slot. Like he talked about that kind of stuff. And I think if you give him another year in the system with offensive linemen that can grow with him, get used to his cadence, everything like that, I think it's what's best for Oklahoma.
Well, and if you take that pick 6 out of the Alabama game, and kind of assume everything else to kind of fall in line, do you not think that John Mateer had a really good, like probably the best game of the season? I think so. I mean, because I look at that pick 6, and of course at that point too, everything was crumbling around Oklahoma. So it just felt like all the momentum was swinging. It felt like all the pressure. So you take that pick 6 out, which was still his fault, still his bad decision. But if you take that out, it was a solid game from him, and it showed the progression. And then the offensive line played really well throughout that game, I thought as well, especially in pass pro, where he was climbing up better. He was finding guys open. The look downfield to Xavier Robinson to find him downfield wide open, that was a great find. It just sucks that it happened on third down when he could have made the first down, and then it was dropped. But that was a good find. So there was a lot of really good things that I saw that if he works the way he did up to that bowl game leading into next season, I think he can have the year that we expected from him, of course, barring injury, that he could have that season in 2026.
Yeah, and I also think it's not crazy to think guys can improve in the offseason.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like everyone's like, John Mateer's not going to get better. It's like, I mean, all right, dude. I mean,
he literally got better as the season went on, really. And and a lot of people too try to use the LSU game against him. Like, did you not see the wind that was affecting everything in that game? That has to play part of throwing a ball through the air. And it was a terrible game. He had one terrible game there, but I feel like taking that LSU game out of it, and again looking at the Alabama game, outside of the pick 6, that was a really solid performance, and it was the type of John Mateer that we wanted, that we kind of expected, maybe unrightfully so, but we expected that and wanted it. And so I think if you get that version of John Mateer all season next year, man, that's a huge upgrade.
Yeah, I mean, the last 2 games of his season, he threw for an average of 312 yards, 312 and a half yards against Alabama and LSU. Those are 2 top 10 units. I mean, yes, he made his mistakes. I totally get it. I'm not here to say John Mateer is perfect, but I don't know of many quarterbacks in the country, especially late in the year, right? Mm-hmm. Late in the year, you mentioned the wind, like in that LSU game specifically. Yeah. I mean, over 300 yards in both of those. Really, in my mind, you just have to take care of the football. And, I think that's where even early in the year, the reason we didn't have 3 shutouts is because John kept turning it over in Oklahoma territory. And then, obviously you almost lose the game with 3 interceptions. And then against Alabama, special teams imploding. And then the pick 6 you're talking about just can't have it done. So I think it's best for Oklahoma to get some continuity at the position. I don't like this 1-year quarterback carousel. Have a guy learn a new offense, come in. Like, think of the jump that Dillon Gabriel made from year 1 to year 2. Like that's a significant jump.
Yeah.
And look at what the team did year 1 to year 2 with that, right? You went from 6-7 to 10-2. If Danny Stutzman plays in those 2 games, the full 4 quarters of both those games, who knows? Oklahoma probably goes to the playoff that year. So you look, it's like we can't probably as a society, I hate to be that guy, but we live in such a damn microwave society where we get frustrated if our StreamYard buffers too much. Like, we can't microwave an offense. Like, we can't keep on just going back. Oh, John Mateer, we didn't like the picks he threw, or we didn't like, so throw him back into the pond, cast your line again and go get another guy who might stink as well. And stink obviously is a strong word for John Mateer's performance in that. But I mean, yes, Shane, Joe Burrow, 1-2, like there's there's a huge list of quarterbacks that people are very glad they didn't get rid of in their first year. Very glad they didn't get rid of in their first
It's
year.
really just common sense too that the more you sit there and learn, the better you're going to get mentally. That's just and John Mateer's mistakes weren't physical mistakes. Maybe the release pattern, how he kind of releases a little low, but it's not a physical mistake. It's just seeing the field better. His eyes. That's the worst thing about that you can say about him this season.
Yeah. And I think for me, the best thing you can do to make the quickest improvement in John Mateer's play is to get a run game that's consistent. When people look at what's wild to me is when people look at, Texas beats Texas A&M late in the season, and some are talking about how well Arch played, but you look at that game, Arch didn't have some crazy good game. What happened was they were just able to run the ball for 7 yards a carry, and Wisner goes for 165 yards and 2 touchdowns, and it takes so much pressure off of your quarterback. Because, and Travis, you made the point earlier about the 10-2 in terms of impact players. Offense is it's a different type of adjustment when you're based off. Defense is more reactionary. You can feel mistakes at the second level. Brent Venables talks about it a lot, and you can have ways in which you make up for those mistakes. But if you are bad in terms of your timing on routes, in terms of the offensive line having blown assignments, in terms of your running backs not being able to hit holes or be consistent in that area, it affects everything. And, for John, and I get he was flawed in a lot of ways. I just think that we forget, and I go back to this example because it's one that just stings, and it's one that I think proves the point too. Go back to the Georgia-Oklahoma playoff game, right? People forget that Baker Mayfield wasn't average in the second half and overtime. He was objectively bad. He did not play well. The reason why Oklahoma was in that game was because you had Rodney Anderson go for 207 yards, 2 touchdowns, and average 7.8 a carry. If you can get that kind of production, there's the reason why people are successful. Now, you have exceptions to that. Joe Burrow had also Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. If you're telling me we can have 2 of those guys, if we can get Jeremiah Smith and Cam Coleman next year, I bet John Mateer has a pretty good year, because at that point, you're just saying throw it straight and far. But get him a
Close
run
your
game.
eyes for all I care.
Yeah, exactly. Just get him a consistent run game and something that, and along with obviously Josh, just like you're saying, the improvements he can make. I think it sets up for them being just astronomically better on offense in a way that just really at that point doesn't even take that many adjustments.
Yeah, Chad, you bring up a good point with the run game specifically, and I think something to talk about with Oklahoma in 2025. Look at the youth in the 7 people that matter most to the run game. Xavier, your top 2 running backs, Xavier Robinson, Torrey Blaylock. Torrey Blaylock, true freshman, Xavier Robinson, sophomore. You've got 3 freshmen, one's a redshirt freshman, on the offensive line. Jake Michaela returns. And obviously, the portal's about to open on Friday. All 5 of those guys could leave for all I know. All of those people should get better with not only just growth, but gelling together, knowing, especially on the offensive line. So if you can get John Mateer back with a better offensive line and a better run game, that's a significant difference. You don't need to go and portal 4 offensive linemen and have a whole new shuffle and then get another running back, bring in another Jaden Knott. No. If you want to bring in some wide receivers, fine. If you want to bring in some tight end help, fine. Yeah, bring in a tackle or something like that. But I want to see Foje, EPL, Fasusi, and Michaela as 4 starters next year, week 1 against UTEP. That's what I want. I don't want to keep on shuffling this thing, and every time we don't catch a fish, we pull it back in instead of letting our hook sit, let our bait sit a little bit, and let it develop a little bit.
Well, and can we stop waiting until the 10th game of the year to finally find starters that, the way we found Xavier Robinson late last year? Or why was Fabechi Wiwu not a center long before? He was awesome. That was one that was oh man, this is going to suck. We're going to have fumbled snaps. We're going to have, just miscommunication there. You're going to have some missed assignments, but he was phenomenal at center. I thought he was better than Michaela personally. But I felt like the offensive line never looked as good as it was when he was at center, and that wasn't even where he was supposed to be. So just find your starters by like week, 2 or 3, hopefully. If you really have to go that far, but let's find it in spring ball when you're supposed to.
Yeah, I think, and we can move on to the next subject or whatever. Just to your point, Josh, and it brings up what Trav just talked about. I always go back to last year's Texas team, or the last year they had Quinn Ewers as their starter, and it talked about that all 5 of those starters, I believe, don't quote me on this directly, had like 80 starts between them at Texas at one point. And then you looked at Oklahoma, and it was like we had 11 different iterations of an offensive line, much less a repetitive starting 5 that had even 2 games together. And all of them were also old and had experience at Texas, and they were one of the best O-lines in the country. To your point, Josh, it's like not only are you more experienced next year, but it's an experience that you've gone through the fire of as a true freshman of being of having played an SEC schedule. Now Beatonbow goes, hey, I got 4 of my 5 guys back this year. We're not starting from ground zero this next year, building a starting roster or starting offensive line. You're starting with 80% of it already completed, and now let me just find out which piece works best with those 4. I mean, you're hitting the ground running instead of, like the phrase is, learning to fly the plane while it's taking off. I mean, it's one of those. So I think it's going to be massive.
So let's get into, guys. Let's get into what we want to see in 2026. Like what each person needs to give one. Well, let's do 2. Let's do 2. 2 things you'd like to see from the Sooners in 2026. We can do one big picture, like holistically to the season. Obviously, I think all of us would like to say national championship. Nothing necessarily that big. Everybody wants that. But some big picture, and then maybe a specific thing that you want to see. So, Trav, let's start with you, and then we can go around.
All right, so I'm proposing this order, so by the time we get around, not all the wishes are gone. So I'm proposing. I've been doing a lot of that lately. To go me, then Chad, then Josh, then JP again, then Josh, then Chad. It's like a snake draft. So I will say 1 to get us started. It'll go back, and then JP, you'll say 2, and then it'll come back. Okay, so I will take the lowest hanging fruit in 2026. A run game. A run game that is – I'm not even going to get greedy. I want to average top 5 in the SEC rushing yards per game. I don't think that's greedy. I want to be top 5 in the SEC in rushing yards per game. So that is going to be my first one. So Chad, you give your first.
God, I guess in a different way, an offensive scheme in which the quarterback isn't asked to do everything. And I think that kind of just tail ends on your run game point. But one in which, you're not having to, even if it's not as efficient as you would like your offense to be, but it did seem like, especially towards the end of the year, it was, John Mateer do everything here. So an overall scheme on offense in which your quarterback can take snaps off sounds bad, but doesn't have to just, hold, doesn't have to carry the ring all the way to Mordor. He can, share it with Sam, kind of halfway through. That for me would be my big picture.
Yeah. And to your point too, Trav, consistent. That's basically what you kind of put together there. Putting something consistent together. I'll kind of throw one out for the offense. I mean, I know we're kind of touching on the offense right now, so I'll keep it on the offensive side of the ball. I want to see the intermediate game because when we needed it the most, it was completely gone. It wasn't there at all this season. And so, like, I love the big plays. That's fun. But, that's also what hurts your defense at times. And so I want to see an intermediate game. Let's find guys over the middle. Of course, having a tight end might help that. Offensive scheming might help that. The run game might even help that. Let's get some intermediate with the run game too. That's cool too. Just as general as I can be, let's get an intermediate offensive something intermediate game going on the offensive side of the ball.
I would like to see a jump from our guy John Mateer. I think people mentioned in the comments. I feel like it's low hanging too, because I think the jump you saw specifically in my opinion, in the Alabama game Without that pick six, there's not a lot that he left on the bone. He seemed more confident like 90% of the time. Did he still have some moments? Yeah. But the majority of the time, he looked like a different quarterback. He looked like he was confident in the pocket, poised. Some of the throws he made, like that touchdown throw to Deion Burks, was nails. And so you're hoping with a complete offseason, where, hey, now he knows what's expected going to the SEC. Last year, it's a lot of install stuff, a lot of, what are we going to get, not really knowing. Now full bore, what's needed of you, how you need to grow specifically, and what's not working. Like that stuff's not going to work in the SEC. It may have worked in Mountain West and where you were before. It's not working here. And, I think if he can build upon what we saw in the Bama game, I truly think that he can have a special year next year. Big picture, I guess that was more specific. Big picture, I would really like to see the Sooners make an SEC championship game next year.
Yeah.
That would be great. And I feel like that's something that we absolutely should be striving for next year.
All right, I'll go specific again. This is one I'm kind of surprised we haven't talked at all about it. I want Cam Coleman. I don't care what you got to throw at him. I want Cam Coleman. That's it. Talk about an intermediate game. There it is. I want Cam Coleman.
Listen, Cam Coleman to me, get him, or try to at least. I'm interested in y'all's thoughts. If I don't mean to put something else out there on the Cam Coleman thing that everyone's talked about. I haven't been able to listen to Radio Traps. If you talked about it ad nauseum, apologies. But specific for me would be an Owen Heineke first team All SEC kind of year, because that means he came back, I guess. I would like to see, just maybe that, or who is going to be the R. Mason Thomas for us next year is really, obviously you have Taylor Wine coming back, but to be fair to the other teams around, he's not going to be a surprise for anyone next year. It's one thing to adjust in season. It's another to have a whole offseason to prepare for a certain type of player. So can a guy like Danny Okoye step up? Can PJ continue to improve? The defensive line, or specifically defensive ends, for me, are going to have a lot to do with the success, not even on defense, but I think the overall team. Also, I want specifically our punter not to literally drop the ball in the playoff game if we make it. Next. Sorry.
All right. So my wish list, and I really think it would lift almost everything everybody has said. I want the same starting five in week one on the offensive line every week until the last game of the season. I want the same starting five. So offensive line continuity and health. I don't know how offensive line health wasn't 8 for 8 in this little exercise we did, because when you look at the last 2 years, I think many of our issues have simply come down to offensive line health. I mean, even, finding your right people. Really, when you look at like official PFF stuff, it was like when you had Fasusi, EPL, Michaela, Fabechi, and Derek Simmons in, that was your best offensive line. From a PFF perspective, Derek Simmons was your highest graded pass blocker against Texas. You were holding on, and then he goes out and can't come back in, and the offense doesn't move the rest of the game. So, I think if you can just get your unit, Oklahoma has the dudes. Especially if you can just, if I'm not being greedy and just say I want the 4 to the left to be there all season in Fasusi, EPL, Michaela, and Foje. If you lock in those 4 for me, and we can find, whoever we want to put at right tackle, lock those in for me and call it good, and I'm a happy camper. But I think, when it comes to this year was supposed to be Sexton and Taylor being your bookends. Those were your 2022 4-stars. They were brought in to be your dudes in the 2025 season. That is your natural progression, right? Well, both of them obviously battled injuries, couldn't get healthy. Logan Howland battling injuries, Ozida battling injuries, Troy Everett obviously out for the year with injuries. You start to go through these last 2 years, and it's everybody's hurt. So, just if we can get health along that line, I'm not I don't think Bill Bedenbaugh forgot how to coach offensive line all of a sudden. And I don't think that all these offensive linemen that we have all of a sudden stink whenever they show up to the 405. So continuity and health on the offensive line.
Can I ask
Like
y'all?
that. I think those are all. Go ahead, Seth.
JP, I wanted to ask you on the Cam Coleman thing, because obviously it's a hot topic, and I think every team right now thinks they're getting Cam Coleman. There's always these backroom rumors. Do y'all think it's worth the? Say it costs $2 million, say it costs 2.5. We'll split the baby there. I'm of the opinion that, and I know people bring up Moneyball and all that stuff, and I think people misconstrue Moneyball for being cheap. Moneyball is all about just return on investment. If the investment's worth the return, then it's not. It's not like you just are avoiding stars or you avoid big name targets. It is, does the money you spend on one target equate to more of a return than you would spend on 2 or 3 pieces for that same amount of money? And for me, it's like there's maybe one receiver you would take above Cam Coleman next year, and he's about to play tonight. If you can get a guy like that, people forget how much Baker and Kyler could just say, "Hey, CD, there you are," and just start throwing it to him, and how much having a guy like that really does change everything on the offense. For me, it would be at least worth it. I've put it like Oklahoma should at least certainly be at the conversation. Now, you may not outbid a guy. If Texas Tech literally says, we're going to do a favored nations clause and just say whatever they offer, we offer 50% more, then fine. You move on. But at some point, I think Oklahoma does need to get in the game of, look, there are big-time fish in the portal, and at some point, you kind of see with the KC Concepcion, with these guys that went to other programs that were big-time names last year and OU passed, talent shows up sometimes, and it makes a huge difference. It makes it easier also on the other players on the roster.
I think Oklahoma, based on the impression that I'm getting, I think Oklahoma will be the biggest initial offer and possibly willing to try to outbid. I just don't think it's going to come down to just. I don't think he's going to take the highest bid. That's what I think it's going to come down to. And I know that might sound shocking to people, but yes, some players legitimately want to go certain places because of other factors. And so I think, not to say that Texas or Texas A&M is necessarily a bigger brand than Oklahoma, but what I think those two are the obvious front runners. And I don't think that he's necessarily going to take the biggest bag. I don't think that's all that he's going for. And so you might be able to say, look at this past year and which quarterback gave me more of a potential, which program has put more receivers in the league as of recent, and kind of combine all that together. I think OU does have a good chance, and they're going to be throwing everything they can at him. But I don't have high expectations for him to come to Norman at all.
Yeah, I'm Chad. I agree on the Moneyball thing. Everybody in their regular everyday life plays Moneyball. That does not mean you're cheap. It means that you try and spend wisely. You try and, you don't go buy the biggest brand thing just so you can say you have it, I think there are going to be some schools that want to make a statement with Cam Coleman and say, hey, we'll make you the highest paid, wide receiver, blah, blah, blah. Here's, $3 million or whatever. But in my mind, wide receivers are a dime a dozen, man. I know Alabama had playmakers, and the difference in the game outside of our own special teams was Alabama going and making downfield 50-50 catches. And I think that matters. I mean, how many games did Cam Coleman win this year for Auburn? I mean, not enough, right?
He literally fumbled the Alabama game away, actually.
Yeah.
Remember?
I mean, yeah, exactly. So it's one of those things, like, if I'm going to invest in something, I'm going to invest in look at Ryan Williams. If Ryan Williams would have entered the portal last year, he would have got Cam Coleman money. That's what we'd be talking about last year at this time. Well, what year did he have? Right? Not the year that everybody expected him to have, with Ty Simpson, being a Heisman candidate most of the year. So you can't just bet on these things, especially wide receiver. The reason NFL draft, they look at 3 things: quarterback, protecting the quarterback, and disrupting the quarterback. That's why edge rushers, left tackles, and quarterbacks are always highly valued. And there's a reason that you can look at wide receivers. Yeah, it's nice to have the, Malik Neighbors and these type guys when they stay healthy, and the Justin Jeffersons. How's Justin Jefferson been for my Vikings this year with rotating quarterback play? Not good, right? Like, in my mind, you can find really good wide receivers, like an Andrew Marsh, if he were to make his way, into the portal on Friday, right? Or, there's a Kansas State wide receiver that's fantastic. Or call me crazy, how about Emmett Jones, who was supposed to be the Star Spangled Awesome developer? How about he develop some of his high school talent that he's recruited?
J. Mike is going to be special.
Like,
we saw glimpses of that in that Alabama matchup.
Yeah, just like
Elijah Thomas seems like he has some ability.
I agree. I agree with you though, Trav. I mean, it's
Jaden Petit. Should he just come and plan on not playing at Oklahoma and then portaling in 2 years because we're just going to bring in transfers over him? What about Manny Choice? What about Elijah Thomas?
Yeah.
What about Ivan Carrion? We talked about, oh man, he got some good work in the bowl game. Look at what might come, and then all of a sudden, all outside of 7 receptions this year, all of them went to people that didn't sign with Oklahoma out of high school. So again, we've got this elite recruiter and elite developer that can only go get portal guys and play them. And this is not a, trying to be an Emmett Jones rant by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just looking at the numbers.
Emmett Jones trasher.
Like, I'm not like, this isn't me trashing Emmett Jones. We were told we were getting an elite recruiter, an elite developer. Nobody he has recruited since high school, and I know you recruit the portal too, but nobody he has recruited since high school has made a iota of an impact since he's been in Oklahoma. And I don't know who else's shoulders that falls on other than Emmett Jones's. So if you're an elite recruiter and elite developer and not a single high school signee of yours ever makes a difference at Oklahoma, then something's wrong.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I do got to run. Feel free to finish. Happy New Year to all the peoples. Bless you guys. Love y'all. Appreciate you.
TJP, Happy New Year, man.
Yeah, he's got a 4:30. He's got to roll.
Trav, I wanted to ask you and Josh real quick. I've seen the chat mention it a couple of times about coaching changes. Do you see any? What's your thought on if? I'm going to ask you questions on your own show, but like, what's your thought on there being potential changes, Josh? You too, or and then I'll kind of go last. But I'm just curious on that front.
Yeah, I mean, I think Schmitty's gone. Most likely. I mean, it's not 100% certain, but that seems to be the case. I don't think there will be any coaching changes. But I mean, I'm open to being wrong.
I mean, look, I think that Oklahoma, and I think one of the reasons Brent Venables is such a good coach and such a good recruiter is because he's fiercely loyal and he truly does build relationships. Like, he loves these people, right? He treats them like family. This is why Nagy's here, man. These people aren't Nagy's family.
Yeah.
These people, that's not what this is about. Like, hey, anybody who has not developed talent into the NFL or recruited at an extremely elite level, I'm gonna show up like Elon did at Twitter and say, all right, I need you to tell me what you do here. Tell me what you did today.
Well, I should be clear with my statement too, just because some in the chat. Yeah, I know Schmitty's retiring. That's the only one that I know that would be a coaching change, but just wanted to clear that up.
So yeah, that's where I'm at. Is if I'm Nagy, I'm going in and saying, hey, look, like what are we doing? Some people might point to Joe John Finley like they are in the comments, and the argument, against him would be, well, you got your salary doubled whenever you became co-OC, but you're not co-OC anymore, and you're still making $1 million a year as a tight end coach. Are you? And I imagine he's probably a top 3 tight end coach. Like, if you don't have a like an additional title, like if you're not like a like an OC. I think there's a couple coaches around the country that have like a tight end OC type vibe to them. But tight end coach and tight end coach only. Is Joe John Finley the highest paid tight end coach in America? He might be. Has he been the most productive tight end coach in America? Has he been the best tight end recruiting coach in America? I would argue that he hasn't been either of those things. So, but he's an alum. Everybody loves him in the Switzer Center. I get it. When you look at, again, a guy like Emmett Jones, right? Okay. Not a single person you've recruited from high school. You've developed into a playmaker on the field, or maybe you haven't identified the correct talent out of high school. You've let guys like, Bryant Westco. That was, everybody's like, oh man, he's going to be a Sooner. I know nobody ever thought DeCorian Moore was legitimately going to be a Sooner, but there was early stuff. Like originally, we were supposed to sign every Dallas, top end wide receiver, and I'm not sure really. Have we done that? Have they seen the field? Have they been great? I don't know. So, you look at running back situation. Why is it that every year our best running back is the freshman that has spent the least amount of time getting developed by the coaching staff? I don't know. There are certainly questions that can be asked, and I'm not campaigning for any of these to be fired, but you could see why Jim Nagy might have some questions. If he does indeed have questions, you could see where they would come from, because I don't think the fan base is just making this stuff up that they think we should move on from something. Like, I don't think that's the case.
Yeah,
No,
and it's always shocking to me too, like, because you bring that up with with the wide receiver room, and looking at it that guys like Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, and you look over at Alabama with Ryan Williams, and how even as true freshmen they make not just a splash on their own squad, but in the nation. And it does feel like it feels like ages that Oklahoma has had that guy. So I mean, you raise a really good point with that too. It's just, it does suck when you sit there and you look at the recruits coming in, and we know that there's a lot of guys that are currently on the squad or coming into that wide receiver room that we have high hopes for, but what do we have to prove that on? And when is it ever going to come to fruition? It's like you see a glimpse. This past season, like I just mentioned, you saw J. Mike and what he was able to do out there in that Alabama game. Is that going to come to fruition in 2026, or are we just going to let that go to the wayside again? So yeah, I mean, there's a lot, and then the running back room is the same way, with guys that have talent, and then what do they do after that? It seems like they go downhill more than anything.
Yeah, and I'm gonna address this real quick.
Yeah.
So he had an all SEC tight end that moved over from a different position group. I'm not sure how much time he spent. He didn't recruit him out of high school to play tight end. Jaron Kanik made things work with his receiving for the most part, but I'm not letting Joe John off the hook because Jaron Kanik switched sides of the ball. He recruited Devon Mitchell. He had to babysit because the guy was a knucklehead. Okay. Whose job is it to identify who's knuckleheads and who's not? Were there any signs that Devon Mitchell was going to be a knucklehead? I have heard things that maybe there were signs that he was going to be a knucklehead. So I'm not gonna go ahead and, I mean, where's Devon Mitchell now? Wasn't he in charge of him? Where is he now? Right.
I was listening to Coach O talk with the Bustin' the Boys, and listening to him talk about some of his recruiting stories, where he would talk to like the high school, the high school security or the high school janitor, just like somebody random at the high school that's there all the time. Like, hey, this kid, does he ever get in any trouble? That's something that coaches should be looking into, and asking around, asking their peers, asking the teachers, whatever. I mean, that you're right. That's something that should go into it.
It's not like he's done nothing. Plus, he stepped in as OC, is what I'm reading that as. He got paid. He doubled his already $500,000 salary to be OC. He didn't donate his time. He didn't. I mean, he benefited greatly. That's what the money's for. Like, that's the job. So it's not like we were all of a sudden panicking and the White Knight Joe John came in on his steed and rescued the Oklahoma offense too. Where'd that Oklahoma offense end up, fellas? Oh, the worst in school history. So I don't know if that's going to be a resume bullet point for Joe John, but hey, he's got a heck of a duo signed this year. So maybe this is the year it all turns around for Mr. Finley. But I don't know. I just this is a results based organization, man.
Not for me. It's
simple as that.
The difficult part for me on like people with DeMarco specifically is that like you have two different jobs really wrapped into one. If you're like a position coach, it's like one job is just recruiting. Can you get talent on your roster? And obviously, the second is development production. So it's like DeMarco does a pretty good job at the first phase. Like he gets talented people here. I mean, you get a Taylor Tatum who's ranked number 1 in the country. Hatton Jr. looks like he's going to be pretty good. You get Torrey Blaylock. Lucked in might be a bad way to phrase it, but didn't really, want X as bad as he wanted other guys. But that happens sometimes for coaches. But the production part is where all of us are sitting there going, I mean, what? It just seems like they're coming here with their innate ability and succeeding off of that. And then as they get more beat up in their career, they tend to have a fall off, if you will. But where's the next like Eric Gray that in year 3 and 4 becomes the best version of himself at Oklahoma or one of those guys? That's what I want to see. Or and Josh, I don't know if you made the point earlier. And if you have, sorry, I was reading something here about random, but like true freshman receivers, for example. Like I think Elijah Thomas is going to be an extremely talented guy. Pettit the same way. But typically when you have a can't miss guy at that position, even if he's a true freshman, they typically will show up in a lot of ways. For example, the best way I could put this is if Jeremiah Smith would have been starting this year if he was a true freshman. He's that talented. Cam Coleman would have been the same way. I think Ryan Williams last year would have been the same way. I would hope, at least. You look back at Oklahoma. Ryan Broyles started a true freshman. CeeDee Lamb, true freshman, got a lot of minutes.
Mims.
Mims, exactly. I don't want to, and it's not that maybe, and Elijah Thomas, I hope he becomes a Biletnikoff guy. Look, Justin Blackman wasn't awesome as true freshman year at Oklahoma State. He turned into arguably the greatest collegiate receiver we've ever seen, just on production, whatever. But it's rare that a guy goes from not getting much his true freshman year, other than special teams, to becoming an All SEC, first team All American, or the Biletnikoff winner. It happens, but that's where it goes to the Emmett Jones thing of, and you're right, Travis. I remember when he got hired, you're listening to everyone talk about him, and especially radio or the podcasts, and his whole big selling point was he is the recruiter of Dallas. No one out recruits him. No one can beat him out. OU's going to just pick who they want out of that area. And you're 100% right, where some of these guys leave, and you're thinking like, man, like I thought we'd be in a good position with like Terry Bussey, for example, like a couple years ago. I remember he was a name that Oklahoma fans were pretty excited about. And out of nowhere, he just goes at it. Now, obviously, NIL became a little bit of that. But at some point, I get you're getting guys here that on paper look like they're going to be stars, but we need to start actually seeing them in the abstract, literally become stars, or we're gonna have to start asking tough questions.
Yeah, it's one of the two, right? It's with like DeMarco, he's an elite recruiter. You sign the number 1 back in the country. In Tatum, he flashed. He developed Eric Gray. I won't knock him for that. I think Eric Gray did get better over the time he was here. He became a lot more patient, and that's what got him into the NFL. I think, when you look at, again, a guy like Blaylock, like he got him here, and his raw talent has been able to take him over. I mean, again, Hatton's a very good player, but like theoretically you can use one to kind of, I don't know, handicap the other a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're an elite enough recruiter, you don't necessarily have to like Fasusi needs development, but if you start with Fasusi, like you're going to be like, you don't need to develop him as much as you would need to like moving a tight end to tackle, or you know what I mean? Like you're not going to need as much development. So the thing is with Emmett, it's like, okay, you sign top 100 players in, Petaway and Kearney. It's like, okay, they should take less development, right? Like that's the whole idea. and yet one already portaled out, and who knows, the other one might be on his way too. So I'm still waiting. Like I'm still waiting to. I'm just waiting to see something pop, and I don't think BV's the type to bring down the axe, because I think he treats these guys as family. Which again, if I have to live with a quality of a head coach, I'm living with that one. Like I think that's an absolutely admirable quality and a useful quality at that. But I think Nagy's going to be the one, Randall Stevenson maybe even, to make some tough decisions.
Well, and it's for me with Jones, going even back to last year, it's like, where's the development from the big time, even the breakout games, as few and far between as they were last year? Remember Petaway in the Tennessee game? I came away from it thinking, dude, at least they found maybe a quarterback that can do something with his legs that adds an element that wasn't there before. And I was like, the Petaway guy looks legitimate. Like he was, I mean, and then I think he had like, I don't know, I don't want to say a ridiculous number, but like 5 catches the rest of the season. And some games he didn't even play. And you're thinking, like, what happened between Tennessee and literally the next week? It's like, can we not start there and see some production become consistent? And then who was it in the Navy game? I'm blanking on Kearney, right?
That was Kearney, yeah.
Zion.
And it now doesn't even get on the field this year. And I don't know. It's just weird that, was there no development over the offseason? He didn't get any better? Or were the portal acquisitions you brought in that much better? For me, it's just weird how there's not a consistent, like, you can see this guy getting better and better over the length of his career.
Well, I mean, you look at, I believe, Casey Thompson at one point, didn't he, like, was first or second in the SEC in receiving? So it's like you have Andrell Anthony, you have Jaden Gibson, you have Nick Anderson, you have Jaleel Farouk, you have and then Casey, you have your top 5 guys leave.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I know there was some stuff going on with the recovery staff and some health stuff going on and whatnot, but I mean, your top 5 guys leave?
Yeah.
Like, is that are we just looking the other way on that? Like, and then the next year you don't play any of the guys that were behind. I don't know. It's just, I don't know. Like I said, I don't want to turn this into an Emmett Jones bashing session, because I don't think that's useful. But I do think that as portal season opens, look at the defense. Look how consistency has won the day for the defense. And then don't turn around and just go grab, like, on the 2 deep next year for Oklahoma's offense. I don't want 15 2026 transfers. Like,
and so
I
don't think I have anything to prove this. So I genuinely don't know, but is this a coaching staff, and kind of talking individually, because I think in the running back room, wide receiver room, even in some cases, the tight end room might be there. The offensive line room, I don't think you can make an argument there, because we had some freshmen starting. Is this a coaching staff that values that class level more, to maybe too much, to where they try to go with the upperclassmen and give them a shot? And when you have a transfer guy in, even though you may have, like, what if Elijah Thomas, could have been, the Ryan Williams type of player for Oklahoma, but they just held him back because he's a freshman. I don't know if there's anything like that where they hold guys back because of the class that they're in. I don't know if you guys have better insight or better, maybe an example of, no, that's not the case.
Well, I mean, what we heard all offseason, guys, if you don't remember this, you'll definitely it'll ring a bell. They're hitting the portal heavy this year because everybody's coaching for their jobs.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
6 and 7, you're going to see a sense of urgency this year, and make instant impact guys is what they're going after, because everybody's, quote unquote, coaching for their jobs. 2 things with that. First, you should be coaching for your job every year. Like, and Brent touched on that. Brent was like, I coach for my job every play. And obviously that's coach speak, but when it starts affecting personnel decisions, like, it's not coach speak anymore, right? And Brent's a guy I do feel is coaching for his job at all times. But that's just it's a weird sentiment, isn't it? These guys are coaching for their job, so they're going to look for instant impact guys. Is it? Aren't they always coaching for their job? And shouldn't you always want instant impact guys to a degree, right? To a degree. Instant impact. Why is it that a guy from University of Arkansas Pine Bluff is trusted to be an instant impact guy over a guy you recruited out of high school and has been developing in your system for the last year or two? Why is it that that guy is more suited to jump up from UAPB to Oklahoma into the SEC? Why is he better suited to be an instant impact guy than a guy that you recruited out of high school? If you're recruiting guys out of high school that you think that after 2 years in the system cannot make an impact, then what? A, why are you recruiting them? B, how come you aren't good enough at developing those people to be an impact contributor in 2 years? I don't know.
And that's kind of my point too, because I know like back in high school, and I went to a smaller high school. Back in high school, it was kind of that way for me, where if you're a freshman, you're just not going to play. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, you can do a lot of things to get on the field, but you're not going to get meaningful play time. You're not going to be a starter. And so I mean, I do know that I've known coaches at the collegiate level to be that way. So I don't know if that's what they're looking at. And to your point too, Trav, like why can that true freshman not be an impact player? Why can you not, trust him in that role to be an impact player when you literally chose him? Because when you're recruiting guys, especially when you're going after these 4 or 5 star, highly rated and highly touted recruits, you're going after them because you believe that they could be an impact player to some regard. So, that's kind of the big one for me. I don't really understand it. I don't feel like we've really had a freshman that took over to become an impact player right away. Torrey Blaylock is one of the few. And then there on the offensive line this year, you saw it with Fasusi and Foje. But you haven't really had those guys in skill positions specifically. And Blaylock was really more because of injury, more than them giving him that spot too. Where I know he earned it later on, because of the opportunity given to him. So it's, I don't know, it's just mind boggling to me that we don't have those freshmen, or I feel like it's that we're not giving those freshmen that opportunity to show it and showcase that talent.
Yeah, to your point, Josh, I mean, one of our best true freshman young impact players last year was Jacob Jordan, who we didn't even know was that good until like the 6th game of the season last year. And then I think he had like 2 catches this season. So again, it's another one of those, where's the development of that? I mean, I just to be a consistent route runner, a guy that's a possession receiver that can run great routes, knows the line to gain, gets past it, and just catches the ball. I mean, he was probably our best last year at doing it.
Well, I mean, you've got freshman All-American at 3 positions on this football team in the last 2 years. So I don't think it necessarily comes down to the staff not trusting freshmen. I think it comes down to position coaches not trusting freshmen.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, Bill Bedenbaugh has a freshman All-American.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Jay Valai has 2. Todd Bates has 1. So it's like, I don't know. Seems like these guys, I'm not sure. Are those? I know the trenches. I know Todd Bates and Bill Bedenbaugh would probably earn the titles of best developer of talent on their side of the balls, respectively. I mean, Bill Bedenbaugh has the best track record of development of anybody on the offensive side. And then Todd Bates, when you look at what he's done between Clemson and Oklahoma, he's got the best record of development between out of anybody on the defensive side. So it's interesting. The guys that are known as developers seem to have freshman All-American and trust freshmen to play.
Yeah.
I don't know. Something to think about, I suppose.
And for me, just the last point of how they're doing it and the lack of development at certain positions is just when you going through the portal continuously, it feels safer at some point because you can get immediate returns with guys that have production at other schools, but it's at the expense of cohesion, of skill development, of creating a cycle in which you have a consistent output of production, and you substitute that with just hopefully you play the risk of talented enough guys getting in the portal. And so I would like to see someone who, hopefully we do this year, just someone who's a little bit better than they were the year before, and that's viewed and it's obvious. Someone asked earlier about do we think they play the portal acquisitions because of the NIL money? I mean, possibly, but I think that's it's almost like a circular thing. It's like you're having a plan because you went to the portal in the first place. Whereas if you trusted your development, or like Travis was pointing out earlier, and Josh did, I think, too, as well, trusted A, who you got on your roster talent wise, and then B, trusted your ability to develop them, then you wouldn't have to go through the ringer of, well, we don't want to waste the money we spent on this guy to get out of the portal. Therefore, we're going to play him to make up for that pay. But I don't know.
It's a chicken and egg. It's a chicken and egg. I mean, it's retention is more cost effective than acquisition. Some might use the phrase cheaper to keeper. So, you know, when you're going and saying, hey, NIL money, they have to pay these transfers, to your point, Chad, you don't have to pay them if you develop if you've got to play guys because you've already paid them so much, you've already failed in your development. Like it's already too late. Like, because you've had to go get somebody to make up for it. But we are been at over 1,000 for a long time, but we're at an hour and 21 minutes. I do go have to make some fresh pasta for dinner tonight, for some New Year's Eve dinner. Got a couple projects to do. I definitely want to thank you guys both for coming on. Obviously, you know, last minute type situation. So I appreciate your guys' flexibility. I appreciate the, you know, well over 1,000 of you that are watching right now. I hope you all have a very safe New Year's Eve, and all you and all your families have a nice, safe New Year's Eve. And yeah, I'll let you guys hit your sign offs before I close up shop.
Yeah, my name's Chad Smith. I am usually on here Mondays at 7 with my wife Tierney on the Voice of College Football Network. We do a Sooner Smith show where we just kind of talk about everything Oklahoma related. We do branch out episodes. Just want to mention we have a couple interviews coming up. We're pretty excited about one with Peyton Verhulst next Monday, and then after that, KJ Kindler, the head women's coach, gymnastics coach for the women's team, on the 12th of January. Or the week after Monday, if that date's wrong. I haven't looked. But we're excited about both of those. If you want to watch them, we'll be streaming them on YouTube. Other than that, hope you'll have a great New Year. Travis, thanks for letting me hop on. It's always fun.
Yeah, and I'm Josh Mahler. Same as Chad, Oklahoma, the voice of college football. Doing shows over there as often as we can, but Tuesdays, Thursdays is whenever I'm on. And then, of course, they're on Mondays for the Sooner Smiths. But yeah, again, Trav, I appreciate you guys reaching out.
Yeah, thanks, guys, again. And thank you all in the chat, especially those of you that, you know, consistently engage. That always makes it fun, right? You know, Robert, Kyle, Nate, Jimmy, Seth, James, all you guys, man. You guys do a great job. And, you know, I know that it's New Year's Eve and a lot of you have football to watch and, you know, a lot of other things to do today, maybe return Christmas presents or who knows. But appreciate you guys taking an hour and a half out of your time today to hang out in the comment section and watch the show. So for all of you on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, we will see you in 2026. Boomer.
Sooner.